Hello, Galaxy. I'm Chris Pirillo, and you're watching the Locker Gnome Daily Report, or TLDR for short. I was streaming live on Twitch as I'm doing right now, and I'm doing it every night at 6 p.m. Pacific. So you can join me tonight, as well as the rest of the community, if you like to geek out. Someone asked me a tech question. They jumped right in to chat, and they asked what I thought about the Pixel camera specs. And my honest answer, my brutally honest answer, was I don't. I couldn't even tell you what the Pixel camera specs are. I'm sure you could, and specs may matter to you, but they don't to me, and I'm not saying that they never have, but inevitably, when we think about specifications, specs, the spec sheet, right, these numbers, benchmarks that may be used, artificially designated constructs to provide some kind of value prop in terms of this device versus another device, they don't speak to anything that matters to me. Specs are important. You want to know that something is better, but is it really better even when it's better? I mean, you could have a bigger lens. Does that mean it's better than a smaller lens? You could have more megapixels. Does that mean it's better than fewer megapixels? You could have this, that, and the other thing. Does that mean it's really better? And this is where I get a little perturbed when I hear a lot of people who love sharing their thoughts and opinions focus on the numbers, the specs, without giving any regard to what matters to me, and that is the photo, the actual output. That is, by and large, the experience in a nutshell. The experience is what I would rather focus on. So when you ask me questions that are very well suited for people who do care about that other stuff, you're going to get this kind of response over and over and over again. And I'll tell you, there was never a device that proved my position better than the Pixel 2 XL, specifically the camera. I mean, you could also, extrapolate and also talk to how that device was under-spec'd compared to its contemporaries, but it held its own. If it failed by any measurement, it wasn't because of numbers on a sheet. It had an immense value to me and to a lot of other people. It's what really made people Pixel fans. But it was the camera output that was impressive. It wasn't the camera array. It wasn't the lens itself. It wasn't everything that might have been inside the camera apparatus. It's what was produced from the hardware. And that, to me, is the interesting story. That, to me, is where the conversation should be. That, to me, is where all value is derived. Not just the hardware. Very important. You can't take good pictures if you don't have hardware, period. Hardware that you may have forgotten to toggle the software feature to do not disturb so that notifications didn't come in when you were sharing information. The phone didn't know. That's a total pebcac there. But the hardware needs to be there for sure. No doubt. But it's the software that takes that hardware and makes something happen. That's where the magic exists, specifically for photos. Computational photography, the software aspect. This is what impressed me so much about the Pixel series. And really, even in the recent tests that I've published, the Pixel 4 XL can hold its own against the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Like, the leaves are changing colors here in the Pacific Northwest. It's absolutely beautiful outside. I've been tweeting these photos. I've been taking a few pictures from different cameras, but not from the 13 Pro Max. Because despite it on paper having better lenses, the output is just not to my liking compared to Samsung's current flagship, compared to a previous flagship of Google's. It's the output. The output the output from a camera that I would rather talk about. So don't ask me about the specs, because you can find out the specs. You can ask me what I think about the specs. I'm going to tell you the specs only matter if it produces better output. Because if it doesn't produce better output, then you're just, you know numbers. That's great. I'm not a numbers guy. I was an English major. I love writing. I love being creative. That's my world. That's my space. So I'd rather look at the actual image and then judge. I'm not going to judge based on numbers. I'm going to judge based on experience over and over and over again, specifically when it comes to smartphone cameras. Because there are people out there who say, well, you're never going to produce a good image from a smartphone. Really? I would beg to differ. I'm not going to say that it's necessarily DSLR quality, but it's right up there. So come in and ask me what I think about the Pixel output. I'll give you an answer. I think it's outstanding. What do I think about any other device's output? Well, it depends if I've had an experience with it, because I can only judge by that, or the images that I've seen produced online to tell you whether or not that's the type of photo output, the photography, the end result of hardware and software getting along. Again, why? Why can't we speak about both hardware and software? Why? Why? That's all I've ever wanted to talk about. Both! It's equal. It's equal. Equal footing between hardware and software. And I wish I wasn't the only one trying to proselytize this as a path forward to having reasonable conversations. Because it's not just the hardware. It's the hardware and the software. How long have I been saying this? But the moment you start using language like specs, you've lost me. Seriously, you've lost me. Because it tells me your head is only in one part of the equation rather than what matters overall, and that's the general experience that's produced by hardware and software working together. You know me, I happen to be more of a software fan, but all the more reason I get agitated when you leave software out of the equation. Because that's critical. And again, the Pixel proved this. It still proves it over and over again, because on paper, oh, those lenses, oh, they're old lenses. Who wants to use those lenses? I would, and I still do. And in many cases, I prefer them to, quote-unquote, newer lenses. Demonstrably newer lenses, quote-unquote, better lenses. So, it's fine to ask me questions. Just understand that I'm only going to give you the experience in response. I'm not going to speak to something that could easily be displayed on a web page. You turn to me, or you turn to other people because you trust what they're going to say. You trust their opinion, their perspective. Knowing you're biased, knowing I'm biased, that's the experience you want to tap into. So when you ask me a question like that, thank you. Just understand, specifically in relation to camera output, that I'm going to talk about not just the hardware, but the software and how they work together to produce images that you might appreciate.